Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this, our Beat the Blues with Broadway happy hour edition, Oberlin Stage Left happy hour edition. Thank you for coming today. It's good to digitally kind of see all of you.
You look so good.
We have a very special guest today. He's an Emmy Award nominated writer, actor, and musician. He kind of does everything. It's one of those bios that makes you feel about that big. He's the host of 2 serious radio shows right now, Seth's Big Fat Broadway and Seth Speaks. He wrote and starred in the hit musical Disaster, great name for a hit musical. And he's also an Oberlin alum in piano performance. Everybody, let's give a warm welcome to Seth Rudetsky. Thank you for coming, Seth. Thanks for coming on. Let's see if we can bring him on the screen.
There he is. Here he comes.
Somebody has to turn on your video.
There we go.
Okay.
Superman.
Guys, your tech is as bad as I am when I do Stars in the House. Horrific. Anyway, nice to meet
you. Well, thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks for joining us.
Mercy Buttercups. Hi, baby. Hi, Subway.
Hi, Subway, baby.
We have just a couple things that we want to run through before we get started. The features that we're going to be using on Zoom tonight, if you look at the bottom of your screen, we're not going to be monitoring the chat function, but we'll be looking at the question answer function. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask Seth here, feel free to chime in. We'll answer them in real time and we'll pop them up on the screen when we're about to answer them. So let's get started.
Yeah, basically anybody out there, if there's just like a star from Broadway that you love, just be like, tell me a story about, and then just mention the person's name, and I'm sure I have some.
If that's not an open door, I don't know what is.
Well, I've been doing interviews for like 25 years, so I just know all these stories that I have no place for. So just whatever you want to know, I'll tell you.
Well, how's isolation been, Seth? How's your show going in this crazy, wacky time?
It's been, the radio show is the same. Radio show, baby. And I do this live stream now with my husband twice a day, Stars in the House, that we do for the Actors Fund, and it's every day at 2 and 8 p.m. And that's kept us so busy because as soon as you finish one, you have to start the next one. That I'm not even really, doesn't even feel like we're quarantined, because like I just feel like I'm constantly in Tech Week, and I think this is our 10th week, and we raised like $300,000 so far for the Actors Fund. But it's very relentless, so it's good. It keeps us very occupied and not sort of dealing with the outside world.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. How's New York?
We live outside of New York.
Okay, where are you?
Yeah, we live upstate now. When I was back, it was annoying. People are, not everybody, but there are definitely some people walking around without masks, and it's just like, see you in hell? I feel guilty. I feel like I wish I were in Manhattan and kind of like dealing with it like everybody else. We wound up getting this house, and it's really good because we have my mother-in-law lives with us, and we have a daughter, and we have 4 dogs and a cat, and it's like it would have been really nightmarish, especially because they close the dog runs, and my dog will only pee off leash in a dog run, so I don't even know what we would have done. So it worked out. So we're upstate, and these we said we're going to keep doing these live streams until Broadway comes back, and we at first thought it would just be 6 weeks, but now, I think this is going to be like a year. So it's 2 a day for, the next 10 months or something. It's
yeah.
Actors Fund really needs money. The Actors Fund is for everybody in the business, including classical musicians, anybody. And everyone's turning to the Actors Fund because nobody has any income. Everything is stopped.
Right. Well, I guess that is an oddly good segue into my first question to you, is just what is a totally underrated Broadway musical with somebody that we should be listening to while we are in isolation?
Oh, I want to say underrated, but I would say shows that maybe people don't really know.
Great.
I love this show called A Day in Hollywood and a Night in the Ukraine, which I saw twice when I was on Broadway, and it was up for a Tony Award, so it was definitely rated high. But such a great show. The first act takes place at Grauman's Chinese Theater, and it's all these songs about Hollywood that are just so clever. A lot of them Jerry Herman wrote. Jerry Herman, Hello Dolly. And Act 2. That's why I said Night in the Ukraine. Act 2 is a Marx Brothers movie as a musical, and the music is so funny. It's just a great album to listen to from start to finish. Puts me in the best mood. So I would recommend that. And then I'm not really a fan of movie musicals at all. I don't like lip syncing, but I knew this album not as a movie musical. I knew it was an album. And Funny Lady is like Barbara like at her best. It's mid-70s. It's Kander and Ebb. People don't know it's Kander and Ebb. It's an amazing score. So I'd say Funny Lady and A Day in Hollywood and Night in the Ukraine.
Great.
Fantastic.
Go download away, everybody.
Yeah, I am going to do that. Yes.
They're really good.
One thing that we've done on here before is we've been having these kind of, the students, Chris and I, we kind of have these debates about, you know, different Broadway preferences. And one of them that keeps coming back every time is everyone has an opinion on a Mama Rose.
I can't do it. It's like, I'm too in the business. Like, I can't, like, that's like me being like, who's the worst music history teacher at Oberlin? You know what I mean? It's like, I can't, shut up. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I will just say this though, the myth that Ethel Merman was a bad actress is, not that I ever saw her, but I know people that have worked with her, and that myth got spread. It's sort of this thing on Broadway. It's like the worse you sing, the better actor you are. And it's like, no, you're just a bad singer. So this whole thing of like, well, Ethel couldn't act it. It's like, no, she actually could. She just had a great voice on top of it. So that's sort of my only comment about the whole thing, that it's a theory on Broadway. It's like, well, she acted the song so well. I'm like, right, so does Betty Buckley with an amazing voice. You can actually have an amazing voice and be a great actor. If you're in musical theater, if you don't have a good voice, then you're not as good as someone else. You can't just go like, well, my acting is great. I'm not saying there shouldn't be people with a good voice in the business. Elaine Stritch had a crazy voice and she was a great actress, but there's a sort of a snobbery against people with great voices that they're therefore not good actors because their voices are so good. And it's like, no, Betty Buckley is an amazing actor and an amazing singer. Now cut. Thank you.
I agree, by the way. I think the same thing about the Ethel Merman. I mean, she kind of was that role. and like, I just think that recording of her when she loses it in the middle, that is very un-Ethel. You know, she would, I mean, that's unlike any Ethel recording you'll ever hear. I just think it's really wonderful.
She was acting, man. By the way, I think I've been using this microphone and it's not plugged in, which is hilarious. So I'm holding it like this and it's literally, so how's my sound? Because I could plug it in.
It's great. Sounds great.
Then F this. Okay. Hey, everybody. Okay, go.
Well, we've got some questions here. Maybe we should start taking some questions.
What
Yeah,
else?
that's good. Oh my God, Jamie, we have a lot. I'm gonna go with Jonah asks, what's the craziest on-stage mishap that you've witnessed?
Hi, Jonah. When Jonah goes to Oberlin, because I begged him to go to Oberlin, by the way. So just so you know, Jonah did my show, Disaster Off Broadway. He was amazing. And he had his sights on like some stupid ass school. And I was like, anyway, thank Jonah, I was right. I've witnessed so many crazy onstage mishaps. Okay, we got to whittle it down. That I personally witnessed. This just comes to mind. It just made me laugh so hard. I was in summer stock, and when we were in summer stock, I was at Oberlin, and it was 1 week stock. So you rehearse one show during the day, you do another show at night. And then the show you're rehearsing during the day becomes the next week's show at night, and then you're rehearsing another show during the day. So you do 12 shows in 12 weeks. So people were learning their lines. I mean, you're playing Mama Rose at night, and you're rehearsing Fanny Brice during the day. I mean, it was, so there was so much people said. So there were always like, people just couldn't remember it that much. So anyway, I just remember the end of Act 1 of 42nd Street, Dorothy Brock falls, and Peggy Sawyer kind of tripped her, and she's supposed to go, she did it, Sawyer broke my leg. And everyone's like, oh, curtain comes down. So Dorothy Brock kind of forgot that she was playing Dorothy Brock. I don't even know what, but all I know is that we're doing summer stock. She falls, and Dorothy Brock goes, she did it, Brock broke my leg. There was a weird silence, and then my friend Jason goes, who? Curtain. It was so rude to call it out, but I laughed so hard. Anyway, that's just one, but I have many more. If you want to whittle it down, you can, like, what happened in the orchestra pit happened to somebody else. I can tell you more stories. So whittle down those questions and I will. What else?
Well, in fact, somebody else asked a story about working in a Broadway pit or working in an orchestra pit, a fun or funny story about working in a pit.
Sure, I have many of those. My kid Julie has a TikTok. What a Julie Rudetsky Wesley, and she made me film this story. So it's on TikTok, but I'll tell you. I was playing for Seussical, and I was, we're under the stage, and as I was playing, right above me, I saw a water bug, which was like basically a cockroach, but like bigger, and it was like on the ceiling right above my keyboard. So I'm like, oh my God, don't fall, don't fall. But then I realized the ceiling of the pit is the floor of the stage. So everyone is on stage like stomping and dancing. So they're like shaking the floor of the stage, they're just shaking the ceiling, and he's clutching. And I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna fall on me. And I'm wearing like short sleeves. I'm like, it's gonna fall on me, but it's the middle of a song, so I can't just go like, I quit. I mean, I guess I could have, but it's also called being fired. It was so scary. And I don't remember the end of the story. He obviously didn't fall on me, But every time I think about it, it's horrific. The other one I'll tell that happened to me was during Kiss of the Spider Woman, because I worked, and many musicians are watching this, you know, when you get out of college, basically, and you try to get to Broadway, you begin as a sub. I mean, it's like being the understudy. So I began, I worked as a sub for basically my entire career, I worked as a sub. Anyways, so I was playing Kiss of the Spider Woman, and it was my first time subbing the show. And I was a really good sub. Like, I was super prepared. However, I was supposed to play the show on a Tuesday, and the week before they said, oh, by the way, we're having a full run through with Chita Rivera because one of the leads is leaving. So we're going to run the entire show with a new lead, and this will give you a chance to play with the full orchestra before your first performance. I'm like, oh, great. But I really wasn't ready to play because I planned on learning it for the next week. So even though it was a chance for me to play it, they wanted me to be show ready. And as soon as it began, I was like, wow, I'm not ready for this. So I went into basically a panic. And when you play on Broadway, that's the one, also for you piano majors, it's kind of devastating. There are literally no pianos on Broadway. The only piano that was on Broadway that was left in my day was Phantom of the Opera. And around 5 years ago, they got rid of that. So, I mean, when I played ragtime, which is literally all ragtime music, that was electric keyboard. I mean, it's really kind of devastating. There's just no more pianos on Broadway because they say you can mic an electric keyboard better than an acoustic piano. Devastating. But anyway, the point is, when you have a keyboard, you usually have a volume pedal, which makes it louder and softer. So, like, you know, you go down and up. And then you have something called a patch change pedal, which changes the sounds, and then a regular sustain pedal. So anyway, so the show begins, Spider Woman. It's just a rehearsal, but like I said, it's like Chita Rivera, Hal Prince is there. I realize I don't know this, and I start to panic. And like 2 minutes in, the conductor, Ted Sperling, is like looking at me like with a crazy look, and I was like, wait, what's happening? And he said, we said, there's this really weird vibrato. Speaking about the Merman, he was like, every note you play is like, wah, like this crazy vibrato was coming out of my keyboard. So I was like, I can't deal with that. I don't even know what I'm playing. So these tech people came in and they were trying to like fix the synthesizer. They didn't know why there was this crazy reverb. They left, and I finally realized after maybe 10, 15 minutes, I was so nervous that my foot was shaking on the volume pedal. Oh. So it was like, wah! So everything I played, so I just lifted my leg off, and they were like, it stopped. And I'm like, don't know what it was. So devastating, terrifying and devastating.
That's brilliant. Oh, wow. That's great. I remember one of my earliest pit stories was I was in high school, and I was playing South Pacific. I was a piano player in the pit, and the trumpet section one night found a really quiet remote control car, and they put a flask of vodka on the back, and I didn't hear it until it bonked up against my leg. And I didn't drink because my principal was sitting next to me in like the violin section, but the trumpet players weren't that good in that show. So if you can imagine why.
That's really creative though. Yeah, that's a great idea.
They were just driving around from section to section, hoping that everyone would be as bad as they were.
Wow. I've never witnessed that, bravo.
Yeah. Let's move on to another question, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's see. Katie Early says, we always love a crossover. Can you tell us some good Audra or Kelly stories?
Sure. Kelly had an opera teacher, not unlike the, opera teachers at Oberlin, Mr. Miller. These, basically in opera, it's, as you guys know, it's like every note has to really be perfect as opposed to musical theater when it's like, you try to sing it well and like whatever. I remember when I got to play in the pit on Broadway, I was like, oh, I can actually skip this note. Like, there'd be something in the piano part. I'm like, oh, this is too hard to play. I'm like, oh, I don't have to actually play it. Like, it's much more arbitrary on Broadway. You can't be bad, but it's not like classical where it's like, you can't skip anything. So anyway, but Kelly told me that if she would ever sing a note a little improperly and the teacher would get mad, or her teacher, Florence Burwell, would say, why don't you just quit the business and just go sell ribbon at JCPenney? And I'm just obsessed. I'm like, it's just a specific, do people literally sell ribbon? Is that a job? Like, here's your ribbon, ma'am. Like, who buys ribbon? I mean, or is that all they sell? It's not like gift products, like specifically go sell ribbon. And in terms of Audra, so I was trying to think if I think I could relate anything classical. Well, okay, I'll tell you a Juilliard story right after this. But I have so many stories. Okay, I have one that happened to her recently. She was doing a concert. I won't say specifically what it was, but a woman came up to her after and she was like, oh, Audra, you're so wonderful. It was in, what's that place in Wyoming that's really wealthy? Like not Grand Junction. It's like two words. not Big Cup. Anyway, it's a super wealthy place. I can't remember the name of it. But a woman came over and she's like, Audra, you're so wonderful. She was like a woman in her 40s. She's like, now listen, I just had basically a certain type of plastic surgery. Once it was like, I just had, like, let's say like my face lifted. I noticed you could use the same thing. Would you like the name of my doctor? I was like, no, thank you. Devastating. It wasn't a facelift, but it was plastic surgery. And she was being helpful.
Watching Audra looks fantastic. She doesn't need plastic surgery.
Oh.
And then the Juilliard story I know, which is, it's not through Audra. I think this was, God, I can't remember who told me this. I think it was on, anyway, but basically how literal they are at Juilliard. And apparently this acting major, his father died and he had to miss school for a week. And when he came back, maybe it was Marion Seldes, he came back to, but anyway, he went to his acting teacher, no, his diction teacher. And he was like, I'm so sorry I missed last week, but my father died. And she said, no, your father died. I mean, it's supposedly a true story, and I don't doubt it.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Nicole is wondering if you have any Kristen Chenoweth stories.
Yes, sure do. I mean, this just goes to show that, you really never know anything in the business. That's why it's always crazy when people are like, something's a surefire bet. I'm like, nothing's a surefire bet. You don't know anything. Basically, you don't know anything. Not that, therefore, make no choice, but basically make a choice based on what you want to do. And the reason I bring that up is because I remember talking to Kristen in the late 90s, and she had an offer to do like a revival of a big show with a huge star, or a revival of a really small show that I didn't really think belonged on Broadway. So I was like, do the big show. It's got a huge star attached to it. It's going to run. And she was like, uh-huh. And she ignored me and took the small show. And the big show was Annie Get Your Gun with Bernadette Peters. She was offered the sidekick, I think the character is Dolly. She turned it down, and instead she took Sally Brown, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and literally won the Tony Award. And I was like, don't do it. So I mean, because You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, it's a really small show. And I was like, it's not really a Broadway show. And the role hadn't been written yet. So I'm like, what the hell is it going to be? I'm like, do Annie Get Your Gun? It's a sure thing. Anyway, hence she has the Tony Award, and I have a napkin.
That's fantastic. I remember seeing her performance of that when I was younger, thinking it was fabulous. I mean, she was so good in that. Do you see it is that? I thought she was great with that song.
Yeah.
We have a question here about from Debbie Darrow show about antics related to like star casting or stunt casting, and I think that means kind of like, the idea that someone gets slotted into a role because they're going to bring people in, and then you get to the theme and you say, oh, you like, oh, Bill Barr in Kiss of the Spider Woman. That seems interesting, like something like that.
Right. Well, as I talk, I'll try to think of stories, but I did probably the show that had the most stunt casting of all. I did the revival of Grease in the 90s, which began in 1994, and Rosie was our first lead, Rosie O'Donnell. And the Weislers were the producers, and the Weislers have really kind of mastered the art of stunt replacing. So our life in Grease, I wound up becoming the assistant music director, and every week we had something, or every other week, basically every week we had a put-in. A put-in is when the whole cast has to come and you put in the new cast member, because everyone was on like a 4-week contract. So like the Rizzos were, probably a lot of people too young to know, but it was like Rose O'Donnell, Maureen McCormick, Brooke Shields, Tracy Nelson, Sheena Easton, Mackenzie Field. By the way, age didn't matter. Debbie Boone was 44, playing like a high school junior. It's like, whatever. So we just relentlessly, it was nonstop. And then we had, there were all different roles that they would do stunt casting for. We had Dominique Dawes, who was an Olympic gymnast. She became Patty Simcox. The role of Teen Angel went from Billy Porter. He originated it, but then it went to Jennifer Holliday and then Al Jarreau. Then the role of the DJ was like Joe Piscopo, Donnie Most from Happy Days, one of the Monkeys. So just every week we had another person come in, and nothing was really ever bad. They all really loved being on Broadway, and they were all really nice to work with, and they were kind of good about casting people within their talents. Like the Rizzos didn't really have to sing, so they were all fine. But obviously the people who replaced Billy Porter, they all had to be fierce. So that's why Jennifer Holliday and Al Jarreau. It was just hard on the cast because like you're just constantly in rehearsal for somebody new. Brooke Shields, and after Brooke Shields did it, she did Grease. She played Rizzo. She wound up getting a sitcom. So it kind of like, I feel like paid off for certain people's careers. It just killed us because every single week we were in rehearsal. But I support it. I'm not one of those like, how dare they bring in a TV star? It's like, you have to sell tickets. It's like, you got to do what you can.
Yeah.
Do you have any nightmare audition stories? Alex is wondering.
Oh yeah, I have a couple. I mean, I have one that happened to me. I mean, this is just for all you musical theater majors. It's like, you better know what your music is. You better understand your cuts. You better have everything marked. I can't tell you the amount of people that are like, I'll be like, first ending or second ending, like they don't know. So it's like, you have to understand your music. I remember one girl was like, she's like, can you transpose this 3 steps? And I was like, 3 steps up? She's like, she literally meant 3 steps down. So it was a 6-step difference. It was horrific. By the way, of course I transposed it fiercely, but I was like, she didn't even know. And then this is sort of one of my favorite stories. You know, everyone, when they graduate theater school, usually they have a book of like, you know, a Sondheim song, a up-tempo, a classic song. So Norbert Leo Butz had just moved to New York. He was not a musical theater major. He was like a classical theater major, but he has a great voice. And he had an audition for Sideshow, and his agent said, you know, they don't really know what they want you to bring your book. And he's like, all right. So he showed up and he had like 8 days a week, some really inappropriate song for Sideshow. And he never practiced it with the pianist, which is another big mistake. So it was basically a big bomb. So he didn't do well. So they were like, what else do you have in your book? And he was like, that's when he realized his agent meant bring his book of music. He thought his agent was like, it's going to be a really long audition, so bring whatever book you're reading to occupy yourself. He literally had A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe. He's like, it's a total true story. So he did not get it.
Good book though. That is brilliant. That is brilliant.
Wow. Do you personally have any bad audition nightmare stories?
Yeah. I wish I remember the specifics. Well, one was, I remember it was a commercial. Oh God, I wish I remembered most of it. I just remember that it was a commercial, like a PSA. All I know is that they needed a violinist, and like, you know, I was a piano performance major, and I took secondary violin. Like I literally, let's just say I took lessons, like that's it. But I was like, I'll be fine. Anyway, I just remember I brought the violin to the, I just wish there was a video of me playing, because like, I was so haughty, and then like, they wanted me to be like, and I was just like, so that was devastating. The second devastating one was a chorus line. Like I played piano for a chorus line so many times, and in reality, a chorus line is not really difficult choreography. Like the hardest step is in the opening, when it goes turn, turn, out, in, it's a double pirouette, turn, turn, the out is an arabesque, and then it's one more turn. So that's really the hard step. The rest of it is like, it's really, it's just that kind of old school jazz dance. So it's not really that hard. So I played the whole European tour, like, and I really knew the choreography. So when the revival came to Broadway, I was like, I sort of think I could do this. Like I was in the Oberlin dance company. Like I was never a great dancer, but I was like, I could dance. And I knew a chorus line. So first I called my agent. I was like, can you give me an audition for chorus line? So he's like, the casting director said, you can audition for chorus line if you promise that you're as good as anybody in Moving Out. So Moving Out is like NYCB, like New York City Ballet. I was like, what? I was like, listen. I was like, if you watch the Chorus Line Tony Awards, there are some bad dancers there. I was like, I am as good as any of those bad dancers. And he was like, I'll tell him you're bad. I was like, thank you. So I didn't get the audition. So I went to the open call instead, like open, you know, you have to, if you're equity, you just sign up. And I don't remember what number I was. So I was like, you know, waiting to go in. And they were also, by the way, filming a documentary while this is happening. So I had really rehearsed, and like, I kind of had the opening combination. I felt pretty good, but I'm still a little nervous of the turn, turn, out, in. Anyway, so we get there. And the first thing that happened is they cut the combination in half. So already I was like I was so not prepared for that, because like, well, I sort of learned it exactly, like, wait, what? And of course they cut right to turn, turn, out, in. So it was like, I kind of got like 2 steps in where I could look good, and then immediately into the double pirouette. So I'm like, okay. Then they had to do the combination towards 3 cameras. So not only are you being judged, but you're like, I'm literally on film auditioning. So for you dancers that know how to dance, when I got to the double pirouette, not only couldn't I do a double pirouette, I couldn't do a pirouette, nor could I passe. Passe is literally the first thing you do to begin it. I was literally just teeter-totter. It was so traumatic. And the only good thing about the whole thing is that they were interviewing people before the auditions. And I kept like clamoring for one. And thank God I didn't, because it would have been like this. People think of me as a pianist, but I'm an amazing dancer. Then it would have cut to me being. So thank God I didn't get interviewed, because it would have been like the hilarious comedy moment. That was devastating.
That's a good one.
Get it. Spoiler alert.
We have a Facebook question from Alexandra, who is wondering if you have a favorite bit that you wrote for the Rosie show.
Oh my God, yes. Off the top of my head, I can tell you right away. When I worked on the Rosie O'Donnell show, she also hired me to write the opening number for the Tony Awards. So I got to, she said, I want it to be about like being like a grand diva. And she's like, you know, what divas do you think we should get? So first of all, I got to pick the divas. So that was already amazing. So I picked Patti LuPone, Betty Buckley, Jennifer Holliday. So it's like those three, 100%. And then I wrote the lyrics to Roxy. Because, you know, even though Rosie's like, I know every single Broadway song in the world, she kind of has like 5 songs she knows really, really well. Like, and Roxy, we were always going back to Roxy. I knew she knew that. And my favorite line was, because she's singing, I just wants to be a diva. And my lyric was, wait. I want to be a diva. I wish there was some way I could learn. I try to sing like Patti LuPone, but I sound like Rhoda Morgenstern. Anyway, I was very proud of that. It's an old reference, people from the 70s, but those of us old enough to remember, blah, blah. So that was just one of my favorites. One of my favorite memories. And it's on YouTube. You can watch it.
That's awesome. What else do we have, Jamie?
Well, I think we have a question from Alex that I think would be interesting to ask for this crowd here. What was musical theater like at Oberlin while you were there? Did you work on any musicals there? Did you?
Let's talk about it.
I'm taking notes.
Settle in, everyone.
Oberlin is a private school, and in the 80s, it was a crazy amount of money. It doesn't sound like a lot of $20,000 a year. $20,000 a year, which is a crazy amount of money. And for some reason, musical theater wasn't deemed worthy of anything, even though graduates from Oberlin are John Kander, Julie Taymor, Judy Kuhn, Broadway superstars. But there is a complete lack of respect for musical theater. Now, it's one thing to say, we love opera, we love musical theater, but it's literally, we love opera, we hate musical theater. It wasn't even like, they're both amazing. It's like, we love opera and we love jazz to show that we're cool. It's like, right, what about musical theater? No. So basically, we were forced to perform. It was infuriating. We had to perform in Wilder, Maine, which was literally a room. So we were in a room. It wasn't even like the high school auditorium. It was a room with no stage. It was just a room. So I had a full orchestra on one side, by the way, no microphones, full orchestra on one side of the room, and then just people on the other. And I was like, I guess I go to like a clinic, like a weird mom and pop, like, I was like, but I'm paying $20,000 a year. Why can't we use hall? Yeah, no, you can't. But why? Yeah, no. It really is like, to this day, infuriating. And I even tried like 10 years ago when they invited me back, I was like, you know, I've been on Broadway now for like 20 years and like written for the Tony Awards. Can I start partnering with some musical theater program? They're like, yeah, no. There's still like a whole, it's not real music. It's bad for your voice. It's just a whole, I can't. I mean, and all I do is talk about how much I love Oberlin, but that was like infuriating, and it still is, that they do not, or they're like, Sweeney Todd, like we'll accept that. That's allowed.
Candide, Candide every other year.
Right. That's a musical. It's so obnoxious. So yeah, that's my take on musical theater.
Anybody can sing Ice Cream because it has a high C. That's it.
Exactly. High B. But on the flip side, it's an E major. But on the flip side, I will say what I loved about Oberlin is that I could put on a big show with a full orchestra in a big room. So that's where it really taught me to just do everything myself. I wasn't me. I mean, I was with Austin Moosewood. But what I'm saying is like, it taught me to just like do things. So we could have been like, oh, they don't want us to do musicals. Like, I guess we won't. But instead, we're like, well, we'll just put on our own. And that's how it really kind of, my whole career, that's how I got my show Disaster to Broadway. I was like, well, I'll just get investors and I'll write it and I'll put it on Broadway. So the hardships of Oberlin the annoyingness of them not really supporting musical theater helped me really with my entire career. So, you know, it paid off, I guess.
You'll be happy to know there are a couple of fans of Wilder who mimic your feelings about Wilder Man.
People on this list have had to put orchestras in Wilder in the corner, like by those weird curtains.
Oh yeah, and here's the fun part. You know, I was always begging people to be in my orchestra. And I remember I was doing a little night music, and the harp part is so important. And she was like, "Oh, well," she's like, "I have a master class on Sunday," and I was like, "It's fine. I just need you to do it." I didn't realize the master class was at, like, let's say 3:45, and our show began at 3. So at 3:45, she had to leave to go to the master class with her harp. So my music, it's just like squeaking, squawking. She literally wheeled her harp out of Wilder, Maine during the show. Still remember that moment. I told you. Any other questions?
That's a good one.
You got a few answers on here. People saying nothing's changed in 30 years.
I mean, there's such a lot. Like John Cantor is probably, like, if not the most famous, one of the most famous Broadway composers. It's like, it's so crazy that they're acting like we want to do some weird musical genre that, like, nobody likes. It's like, it's so, and then the acting program was a lot of, like, you know, we're not going to do main stage show. Like, we'll do like one classical piece per year. It was all like so academic and not real world oriented. And that's what made me just crazy. Like, I was like, good luck getting a job. Like, they didn't have any musical theater training at all. I'm like, you think you're all going to get just acting jobs? Like, they're not that many. Whatever. I just got a text from someone that goes to Oberlin. It is infuriating. It is still the same, all capital letters. Whatever.
I think we have very similar text showing up on our screen too. I can see that there's the good news for anybody watching. There's a change in the air. Hopefully, we're starting to see some energy on that front to give a little more resources in this direction.
What are we paying tuition for? It's like, it's so obnoxious, man. And it's like,
superstars that come out of Oberlin. Why
and
not?
I thought that we'd have like pop, we had like Bob McFerrin come, like, we'd have pop people come to Oberlin, so it's not like it was a pure classical school only. What's with the obsession with jazz? It's like, why can't you have musical theater too? Like, why is jazz amazing when musical theater isn't? Oh God, it makes me crazy. Musical theater is like an American art form. It is bizarre that it is so disrespected. Oh my God, it makes me crazy.
Preach.
Yes.
That's the face. Yep.
Fantastic.
Did you have a favorite show you got to work on at Oberlin?
Oh, it's so stupid, but I really love them all. I would say I know exactly all the shows I did. So freshman year I did Wonderful Town. It was really fun because it was like, you know, I'd hear the album and then be like, oh my God, it's so cool to hear the album done now by an orchestra live. Like, it was so cool to hear what the breakdown was of the parts. I remember Oberlin, so it was freshman year, I was 17, I did Wonderful Town, it was amazing. Then my winter term project was not a musical, but I did Rhapsody in Blue as my winter term project, which is amazing. Got a big orchestra together, did that. Second year, I did, you know, GNS. I don't think you guys have the Gilbert and Sullivan players anymore. Do you, GNS players? We used to.
I don't think so. I haven't heard about them. They
So great.
I didn't know if they do exist still, but I haven't seen them.
Gilbert and Sullivan is so good. I mean, they're basically musicals, but just in head voice. I mean, like, they're so funny. The music's amazing. So we did the Mikado. I had the nerve to play violin for Pinafore. And I remember the end of it goes dun, 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 dun. It's a G chord. And every time I have a recording of it, dun, 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 it sounds like a G minor chord because I was so flat on my B natural. Dun, 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 dun. It was devastating. But I remember playing Pinafore. I loved doing that. We did Company, and we also were the commencement show for Company. I was in 76, kind of a horrible role, but whatever. Wow. And then my senior year, we did a little night music, and that's where the harp wheeled out. But I loved it. Oh, I also did Celebration. I mean, we did Snoopy. I loved it because it was all student run. So in one sense, it was good because we didn't have annoying teachers telling us what to do. But in another sense, we were basically in somebody's bathroom calling it a theater.
Yeah.
That's very downtown New York.
Yeah. Yes, it prepared me.
Is there a show that Oberlin could put on that would make you so excited you'd come back and see it?
No, I mean, I would just go back to Oberlin because I love Oberlin, but it's not like I'd be like, I've got to see the show at Oberlin. No, but I mean, you know, I love Oberlin. I've been back. I came back as part of the Conservatory reunion. I came back and I did my show, Rhapsody and Seth. I maybe came back another time and did Deconstructed Broadway. No, I love Oberlin. I'd love to go back, but there's no musical that would be like, I've got to see the Oberlin version of this. No, sorry.
Not one.
Line.
Not one.
Unless I was cast in a chorus line. Yeah, no, but I love Oberlin, and I love all the musicians there. They're so talented. I mean, it was an amazing 4 years. You're just surrounded by so much talent and so much intelligence. I definitely enjoyed it.
You know, somebody has asked on here, do you have any advice for aspiring music directors? But maybe we could even broaden this out for, you know, people at Oberlin who are looking toward professional theater as a career, you know, knowing what Oberlin is like, knowing that it hasn't changed a ton since you've left. What do you recommend for people? How do they use their 4 years well? And what's, you know, step one when they leave?
Well, I mean, I'll definitely speak in terms of music direction. I mean, listen, basically the way you're going to use it well is by doing what I did. I'm sure you're all doing it. It's like, just put on your own damn shows wherever you can. I mean, we had also Cat and the Cream, I guess. You guys still have the Cat and the Cream?
Oh,
so I remember they did, I'm getting my act together, Taken on the Road. They did a production there. It was so good. So, I mean, that's the other nice thing is if you can find a piece that's appropriate for a venue, it makes it even better. Cat and the Cream, now Getting My Anthem was kind of a coffee house musical. So I'd say just put on whatever you want. Like, now is the time to do it. Like, whatever show you want to be in, just put it on wherever you can put it on and do it. And if it doesn't get picked by AMTA, whatever the hell it is, then just put it on yourself. But now is the time when you're in college, you don't have a lot of responsibilities to do what you want to do. So I really take every opportunity you can at Oberlin.
And you don't have union rates.
Yeah, well, no, we get the rights. Yes, pay them. And then, you know, music direction is still weird. It's like, there's, I think, now a music direction program in the world. I think NYU is doing it. It's so weird. It's such a major job on Broadway, and yet it was never really acknowledged as a.
Does Cincinnati have one too, or something?
Who does?
Cincinnati, maybe.
You know what? Maybe. Certainly
I might be wrong about that. Something.
No, yeah. It was all like self-trained. So I mean, if you're a piano player, it would be, you've got to learn how to read chord charts. I know if you're a classical pianist, you don't read that stuff, but you've got to do it or else you're not going to be able to make it in musical theater. So I grew up with two sisters who were singers. So I was always getting the vocal selections to like shows and playing the chords. So I just grew up playing chords. So you got to start now. If you only read, there are two types of pianists on Broadway, unfortunately. There are those that like only read chord charts and like don't have any technique. And there are also people with really good technique, but they can't read pop. So it's like, I was, you know, in demand because I had good technique for my classical training, but I knew how to read chord charts. So you really got to have both. And you've got to learn how to transpose on site because at auditions, you have to do that. So as a music director, that's where you're going to really begin is as a rehearsal pianist and as an audition pianist. And you've got to learn, you've got to sight read. And everyone's like, oh, I can't sight read. It's like, it's just called practice. Like literally just get a score you never played before and play through it. Like it's not a God-given skill. It's just called, just keep doing it and you'll learn it. Right. And, you know, I just say, you know, just do everything that's offered to you. That's really how you get ahead in the business. Like, don't wait. Just keep saying yes to things because everything leads to something else. Like the show that I do, Stars in the House, the live stream, I just had Andrea Burns on the show. And she went to camp with, you know, her friend and they were really close friends. And then he wrote a show and he's like, oh, would you be in it? And of course, her friend was Jason Robert Brown. Like they grew up together. And then he happened to write, you know, became Jason Robert Brown. And he wrote the show and he put her in it. So I'm saying the people you work with now, they're all going to graduate and they're all going to be working. So just like get involved and get to know people and say yes to things. Don't be a snob.
Yeah.
Don't be a snob, guys.
Yeah, don't be a snob. Get involved, man. Just
totally
do.
True.
I always tell people that sight reading, I think, is kind of like a muscle. It's like when actors think about like memorizing lines, it's kind of like a muscle. It's something that you get good at. You just have to keep doing it. And you get more, part of it is also being more comfortable just getting the music and playing it right away. Like, I think it's definitely.
Yeah, and a lot of it is also just you begin to understand music because obviously it would be very difficult for me to like sight read an atonal piece because I'm like, I don't know where this is going, but music becomes like you begin to understand the map, so you're able to estimate what's going to come next. That's why the more you do it, you're like, oh, this is a signature chord change. That's why it's hard to sight read 20th century music, 20th century, 21st, whatever it's called. But after a while, you get it because it's all the same similar patterns. So just keep practicing. Now's the time. You have nothing else to do. Practice.
Don't be a snob and practice. You hear that, everybody?
You know,
thank you.
We have only a little bit of time left, but I was thinking that, you know, maybe you could plug your serious show for us. Somebody has asked, how do you select the music and what's it like working with Christine Petty?
Well, I wish I could say I select the music, but the reality is that's not how Sirius XM works. Sirius XM works like a pop channel. So there are, you know, songs that are just sort of decided that are popular. So basically SiriusXM kind of runs like popular Broadway songs that run very often, then like little known songs that it's all like a algorithm, and then like current Broadway shows, and they kind of run in a cycle. So I don't get to choose the music, and that's when people write to me like, why do you never play blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, I don't choose the music, so F to the off. You know, my job is to see what the next song is and come up. Oh, I think my dog has to go outside. Hold on. I'm gonna walk. My job is to see what the next song is that's been chosen and come up with a creative introduction for it. So that's like my skill set, is that I can introduce, you know, Oklahoma like 4 days in a row and try to come up with a different introduction each time to it. Hold on. Oh, wait. Let's see my dog. Who is barking like a crazy dog? The hell? Why such a loud mouth? Okay, sorry. So that's the answer to that. Christine Petty is great. Christine Petty is she's great. I mean, she's hilarious. We do our show every Saturday called The Dueling Divas, and I've known Christine since I first saw her in Forbidden Broadway all those years ago, and we have a great time. I mean, actually, speaking of Oberlin, I have one new thing on SiriusXM, which you guys might like. They started a podcast. They merged with Pandora. So now I have an actual podcast, even though for years people have been like, I listen to your podcast every day. I'm like, I don't have a podcast. But anyway, now I actually do have one. It started 2 months ago. It's called Seth Rudetsky's Back to School. And it's me talking to celebrities for like an hour only about high school. So it's something that I think that, like, you know, college people would really enjoy. And it's like, Tina Fey was the first one. Tina Fey, Vanessa Williams, Michael Urie, Bob the Drag Queen, Allison Janney, Sean Hayes, Jason Alexander. It's really fun. So you can get that at the SiriusXM app or at Apple, you know, where we get podcasts. But people at Oberlin will appreciate it because you see, like, everyone was kind of like us in high school. They were all idiots.
Here, here. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
This was fun. It was so easy.
This is great, and thank you to everybody on Facebook and on our Zoom site for joining us.
Great.
To all the Oberlin students, good luck with finals. You're wrapping up. Good luck with the rest of the semester, and thank you once again, Seth. Thank you so much for coming out today. This was fantastic.
And for all your Oberlin people, just know you can graduate and have a somewhat successful career on Broadway and still fail your Music History 101 midterm, as I did.
Don't listen to him.
I literally got an F, flat out F. So you can succeed 30 years later. All right.
A lighter touch than Sylvan Suskin, so don't worry. I'm a pushover, so.
I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
I'm so devastated.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much, Seth. This was
great.
great.
Nice
Have a
hanging out with you.
good one.